Welcome to the Cuneiform and Ancient Mesopotamian History side of TikTok. This is my channel, Wedgie BCE. My name is Kelsey, and I'm a PhD student studying ancient Mesopotamian history, culture, and languages. My research is primarily on Akkadian texts from the first millennium and how gender and religion and ritual intersect. And I also study how humans think about non-human animals. For my research, I read a lot of Assyriological literature, but I also read a lot of critical theory, especially queer theory and post-colonial theory. Part of the reason I started this channel was to share clear and accessible information about how anyone can start to learn cuneiform languages. If I can do it, I promise you can do it too. And so this video will summarize some of the basic aspects of the cuneiform writing system and the languages that use the cuneiform writing system, and be a foundation for the rest of the content on my channel. First, we need to establish the geographic location that we're talking about when we talk about Mesopotamia. The word Mesopotamia comes from the Greek for between rivers, and the two rivers in question are the Tigris and the Euphrates in the modern states of Iraq and Syria. To be very clear, I'm about to grossly simplify thousands of years of political history in just a few seconds, but it's important to establish some of the geographic and political terms that come to be associated with the cuneiform languages that I want to talk about. The earliest cuneiform texts that have been excavated come from the city of Uruk in the south. And in the 4th and 3rd millennia, this southern region of Mesopotamia is known as Sumer, which is where we get the name of the Sumerian language from. Over the course of the 3rd millennium, city-states form and regional powers develop in different ways, and slightly north of Sumer, we get a region known as Akkad, which is where we get the name of the Akkadian language from. And then at the end of the 3rd millennium into the 2nd millennium, populations are growing and settlements are being founded all over the place. We start to get two regional cultures. In the south we get Babylonia, and in the north we get Assyria. Into the 1st millennium, in the northern region of Assyria, power becomes centralized in a monarchy that tries to expand and control bigger territories, and this is what is known as an empire. Babylon still exists in the south, and indeed Assyria tries to take over Babylon a few times, but eventually halfway through the 1st millennium, Babylon is able to fight back and take over the Assyrian Empire. So I just glossed over a lot of complicated political history, and of course it's more complicated than I just conveyed, but I wanted to provide a background so that I could talk about the history of the languages that were used in the region. When we talk about cuneiform, we're talking about a writing system that is based on the action of pressing a stylus into clay. There are of course texts that are carved into stone as well, not all the texts are in clay, but the shape of the signs is based on the shape that is left by a stylus into clay, the wedges, and that is emulated on the stone carvings. Now, English uses a Latin script, and other languages use the Latin script as well. German, Finnish, Maltese, for example. This is the same in cuneiform. Cuneiform is the writing system, and there are multiple languages that use it. The best attested cuneiform languages are Akkadian, Sumerian, and Hittite, all three of which use a syllabic and logographic writing system where signs represent syllables or entire words or determinatives. But there are other cuneiform languages like Ugaritic that use an abjad system where the signs represent consonants, and the consonants are written and the vowels are implied or sometimes written. Sumerian is what is known as a language isolate. It's not directly related to any other languages that we know of. On the other hand, Akkadian is part of the Semitic language family, so it's related to modern Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, and those Semitic languages. And while Sumerian and Akkadian have very distinct grammars, they are highly interrelated languages. Akkadian borrows a lot of words and signs from Sumerian. And then Hittite, which was primarily written and spoken in Anatolia, or modern-day Turkey, is an Indo-European language, so it's related to German and English, for example. I study Akkadian and Sumerian primarily, and that's what I'll be talking about on the channel mostly. So here's a brief timeline of when Sumerian and Akkadian were spoken in Mesopotamia. Sumerian is the primary written and spoken language until about halfway through the 3rd millennium, when Akkadian comes to be the primary spoken language, but Sumerian is still taught in scribal schools and used for primarily religious purposes. And then Akkadian takes over as the primary written and spoken language until about halfway through the 1st millennium BCE, when Aramaic takes over as the primary spoken language, though Akkadian is still written primarily in diplomatic documents. And as Akkadian comes to be used more in the 3rd and 2nd millennia, regional dialects develop, Assyrian in the north and Babylonian in the south. Assyrian and Babylonian are not separate languages, but they are dialects of Akkadian. They are very similar. There's a few differences in words and how things are spelled, and there might have been more pronunciation differences, but they are very, very similar and are the same language, just different dialects. Finally, let's start to break down exactly how the cuneiform writing system works. Like I said before, Akkadian and Sumerian cuneiform is both syllabic and logographic. Signs can represent syllables and words. But cuneiform is also what we call polyvalent. Each individual sign can represent multiple things at the same time, and so we have to use the context to figure out how best to read them. Let's use an example. So here is the dingir sign. First, I'm writing the earliest Sumerian form of the sign, which simplifies over time into only 3 wedges by the 1st millennium. This sign is very common in cuneiform texts and can represent multiple things. It can be the syllable an, it can be the word for God, which in Sumerian is dingir and in Akkadian ilu, and it can also be the determinative for deities, written before divine names. This sign can also represent the word for sky, or the name of the sky god, An or Anu. And this of course seems complicated and it takes a lot of practice to get used to, but we figure out how we're supposed to read these signs based on their context in texts. So here are 2 Acadian examples that I made up just to illustrate how we can figure out how signs are supposed to be read. In the first example, we have the dingir sign here, and it should be, based on its context, read syllabically as an. Example, we have 2 dingir signs next to each other. The first one should be read as the determinative for divine names, and the second as the divine name Anu. There's a couple other things I should point out here in this introductory video. If in Assyriological literature or in my videos you ever see capital letters, that means that this sign should be read as a logogram. So this sign, the Lugal sign, is representing the entire word for king. The word for king in Sumerian is Lugal, and in Akkadian it's Sharu. In the second line, I have normalized the text from logograms and syllables into Akkadian words. You might also notice here that there's a number after the Shah, and this has to do with the fact that you can write the same syllable, Shah, multiple ways, so we number them in Assyriological literature to talk about the different ways that Shah can be written. Shah 1, for example, looks like this, and Shah 2 looks like this, and Shah 3 looks like this. Lastly, one of the other funky things about the cuneiform writing system is that the length of vowels is not written, but the length of vowels can affect the meaning of words. So when I have normalized the text from syllables into Akkadian words, I've added a circumflex over the U to indicate that it is ultra long. It is a long vowel plus a short vowel. And in this case, the ultra-long vowel is not represented in the cuneiform writing, although sometimes they did write contracted vowels with an extra vowel sign to make it clear that this is an ultra-long vowel, but not always. This was just the briefest of introductions to the cuneiform writing system and cuneiform languages. If you're at all interested in learning more, check out the link in my bio for a link to cuneiform learning resources and a bunch of stuff that you can look at there, and check out the other videos on my channel. I just wanted to make a new video to pin to the top of my profile to be an introduction to cuneiform, because I actually know how to edit videos now, and my old video was not very good. So it was time for an update, and I wanted to add some more information that I didn't include in that original introduction video. So here we go, and if you're new, welcome, and hope you have some fun learning cuneiform languages.